What's up, everybody? Emergency Pod, Shout Buffalo Bills football podcast, brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets. And right now, it's the rush to the red zone. Get game day ready with Tops and score big savings, winning recipes, and everything you need for the ultimate game day experience. Head to the Tops Red Zone in store for all your game day essentials and more. Ryan, I get back from the big city, and we got a big trade, couple trades in the AFC East today, but the Bills finally land their wide receiver one. And that was the big thing over the offseason, right? Like, do the Bills need a number one wide receiver in the offense? And what I think ended up happening was Brandon Beane wanted to get a look at this thing without Stephon Diggs, without Gabe Davis, through 6 games. And I think that the data showed that while you might not need a number one wide receiver, I think having one will help this offense and all of these different pieces do what they're meant to do. There's just not been enough separation for the wide receivers, specifically on the boundary. You're relying way too much on Mac Hollins. So you go out and you trade for Amari Cooper, which essentially, we'll get into the details of this in a minute. It's a 1-year rental for now. I don't anticipate them extending Amari Cooper before the end of this season. It's a 1-year deal. The Browns converted most of his base salary in the offseason. So the Bills are just taking on somewhere in the neighborhood of $700,000, $800,000 for the rest of this season. He'll become an unrestricted free agent in 2025. And who knows, maybe you open the door to bringing him back if it's a huge success. But they needed to do something. They add in Brown to the mix, or Cooper to the mix. Huge day for the Bills Mafia.
Yeah, huge day. You're right. You open up this morning with the Jets trading for Devontae Adams. They're 2-4. This is supposed to be an all-in year where they're a legitimate AFC's contender. And when they make that trade, you say, okay, it doesn't fix their O-line issues, but it makes them a little bit more dangerous. So you sit there and you wonder, is Brandon Beane going to do anything here in the near future? And lo and behold, a few hours later, he pulls off a trade of his own for a guy that's going to cost less than it's a little over 800,000. It was in here in the chat about $809,000, which the Bills could easily get under their cap. They didn't have to throw in extra picks like they would have had to do with Devontae Adams to make the Raiders eat that salary or some of these other guys that are available now. So one, he was affordable, Matt, and two, this is a selfless player. There's no ego involved. He already sounds pretty excited about coming to Buffalo. And as you said, I don't expect them to extend him now, but if he comes on and has a great end of his 2024 season with the Bills make this run, it wouldn't shock me if one, the Bills try to bring him back, and two, if they get him at a more team-friendly type contract because of his age, because of the fact that, he knows what it's like to go elsewhere now with get paid big money, but be on a team that is, 1-5 in the Browns, and it's kind of miserable. So I could see this working out as more than a 1-year rental, but for what it is, I love this move for the Bills and a wide open AFC, in my opinion.
And you're talking about, a couple things with this player, former first round pick, top 10 pick, as it were, back in the day. He's been traded multiple times. He's found a way in season to make an impact with his new team. So I like that piece of it. They needed somebody that was going to bring more nuance as a route runner. And if you go out and you get a boundary route runner in the NFL right now, there's probably a list of 5 or 6 names out there. Adams is probably in the mix, but I think you have to add Amari Cooper into that mix, even at 30 years old. And I think this is the perfect jumping off point for what the Bills want in this kind of player. You get a guy that's coming in off of a bad situation in Cleveland, playing with a very bad quarterback in Deshaun Watson, who's going to be ultra motivated. Obviously, you just put out that story on his first comments to Josina Anderson about the trade. And, he wants to play with Josh Allen, right? He's been a fan of his game for a while. You now get to be a part of a winning situation in Buffalo, now a couple years removed from being in Dallas. And I never even felt like that was a super winning culture there. This is a chance for Amari Cooper to really experience winning at a high level and a consistent level for the first time in his career. And in a lot of ways, he's coming in as like the missing piece. And I've seen some of the discourse on this over the last couple of hours, and the people that maybe stood up and said the Bills didn't do enough at receiver in the offseason and this is going to be their downfall. I think that's one of the things that I credit Brandon Beane for. He's never unwilling to admit when maybe he did make a mistake. And I think the mistake was just, it wasn't as much a mistake, Ryan, as it was the situation with their roster, where it was, how they had to rebuild it. They didn't want to overspend in free agency. If you go out and sign a guy to a big time contract over the next couple of years and he comes in and it doesn't work out, that's when you get yourself into a little bit of trouble. And I think you want to see what it was like. You knew that there was probably some trade options in season. They had so much success with Rasul Douglas. And I know Kelvin Benjamin, people don't think back to that trade as being like a super successful one, but it did kind of catapult them into the playoffs that year. So Brandon Beane has a track record, obviously the success of the Stephon Diggs trade as well. I feel like this is the perfect move, the perfect cost, all those kinds of things. The Bills have 2 second-round picks next year. So they lose a third. I still think that they have some levers to pull. They could be getting that third-round compensatory pick back for the Leonard Floyd signing. We'll see. Gabe Davis as well. I don't see this as, I see this as a win-win-win-win-win across the board.
Yeah, there's multiple compensatory picks the Bills could be getting in exchange for some of the deals that were signed in the offseason. So a third-round pick this year, a 7th-round pick the following year. That's no big deal for getting a guy that is one of the best route runners in this league. And Comment King 702, yes, this is real. Cooper is a member of the Bills now. It's just big all around, not just for Cooper, who, as you said, now he gets to experience this winning culture, this Bills team that has come so close to getting over that hump and has run into KC. But it does so much for the rest of the weapons on this team. We've seen Khalil Shakir bloom into Josh Allen's favorite weapon. We have also seen teams try to take him away a little bit. Well, now that you have Amari Cooper, you can't necessarily do that. And oh, by the way, this opens up things again for Dalton Kincaid. We saw how great Dalton Kincaid was last year when teams were giving Stephon Diggs a lot of attention. It opened up a lot in the middle of the field for Kincaid, or just for Kincaid in general. Now defenses have been trying to take him out of the picture. It helps in that area too. They've got the run game going now, so that's going to help Josh Allen with the play action pass, 4 targets to Amari Cooper. Like you said, this is a win-win-win-win, not just for the Bills, not just for for Cooper, but for so many players on this offense that are going to be able to benefit from that game in and game out.
Shout out to my guy, Josh Reed. I don't know if he's still watching. I just saw his comment. He said it sounds like it looks like a personal attack on him to be wearing the Buffalo Kickoff Live shirt with my Yankees hat, fresh new Yankees hat I just got at the MLB store. Had to freshen up, the repertoire, if you will. Big postseason run. My son is so juiced up for it, watching every night. Big win in game 1 over the Guards, and a couple people on the beat. John Scott, Andy Young. Josh Reed. He said, "Oh, I'm watching, baby." Hey,
Go
Josh,
Yanks,
here you go,
Josh.
buddy. I'll turn it around for you, brother. I'll turn it around for you. I got nothing but love for you. We'll be friends again after the series. Sorry. Anyway, so I want to bring this up because we brought this up on an episode a couple weeks ago, and it's very important. Mike Clay from ESPN, because Amari Cooper has 9 drops through 6 games this season, and that's been one of the big talking points. Now, if you go back over the course of his career, Ryan, this is a new development in his career. This was a guy whose catch percentage was super high through the first 5 or 6 years of his career. And now you're in a spot where you're looking at this thing like, okay, make this make sense, because 9 drops for a guy that you go back over the years, 3 drops, 5 drops, 6 drops, 3 drops, 4 drops. Then all of a sudden 12 in 2022 in Cleveland, 7 in 2023, and then 9 already this season. But look at this stat from Mike Clay at ESPN. 45% of passes directed at Amari Cooper have qualified as off target this season. We haven't seen an off target rate that high for a player with 40 plus targets since at least prior to 2011. So we're talking about a situation for a wide receiver that's as untenable as any in the NFL to try to find success. Now you're shifting gears to one of the most consistently good quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, for years we were talking about, how he improved that part of his game, his accuracy, his completion percentage. He's coming off of a game where he completed 76% of his throws. And I think Cooper, with his ability to get open, get separation, I feel like this is going to be a match made in heaven. And I think that drop narrative is going to completely flip now that he's in a Bills uniform.
Yeah, he was playing with one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, and that's not, that's just stats backing this up. Watson has never come close to looking like the quarterback that he had been at one point in his career with the Houston Texans. The Browns gave him that fully guaranteed contract. He has played abysmal football since that point. So now, you're getting these inaccurate passes your way. When you finally get some that maybe you can get your hands on, you don't have that rapport. You almost probably expect the ball to be off the mark. Not making excuses for Cooper, but he's coming into a much better situation in Buffalo where he's going to be able to be fed the ball in some games, depending on how teams match up against these other weapons. He's going to be more of an asset, more involved in general. So it's just it's a night and day from where he's coming from to where he is now. And I think you're going to see that there's still a lot left in the tank, where last year he had one of the best years of his career with Joe Flacco throwing him the football. And despite the drops, despite the poor quarterback play in Cleveland, you're still talking about a guy that has 24 receptions for 250 yards and 2 scores this season. So still a very productive player that the Bills can now bring in here and use as another weapon in this offense, along with Shakir and Kincaid, these backs, even Curtis Samuel, who they finally ran some routes with downfield last night. You bump a lot of these depth guys down another spot, and that takes some pressure off of them, and it probably also makes life easier for them when they are on the field based on the matchups they're going to see.
Wolfgang in the comments here on YouTube asked, how does this change the offense, though? I think we talked a little bit about how it's going to change the offense. You have a true separator now in a group of wide receivers that you didn't have before. Like, that changes the math in terms of what a defense has to distribute to try to game plan to stop an offense. So now when they go back to pass, when Josh Allen goes back to pass, it's no longer kind of sit back and not so much worry about guys like Mac Hollins and guys like MVS and even Keon Coleman, who had in a couple of nice plays in that game last week. But you're seeing over the course of time, he's not at a point, and he may never be at a point where he's a true separator in an offense. He might just be more of that boundary contested catch guy, which is not a bad piece to add into your offense. I think you need a physical guy, and maybe that could be the biggest change to this offense. Now, Keon Coleman gets a lot of the attention taken off of him. You have to place all of that on an Amari Cooper. And when he's out there with Cooper, maybe he now becomes more of a impactful weapon for Josh Allen.
Absolutely. Like I said, this benefits everyone on the depth chart. Yeah, you might get fewer snaps, but now Keon Coleman's not going up against the top cornerback on the outside for teams, or he can be utilized more in those one-on-one matchups, using his size, using his sideline ability. Almost had a nice grab along the sidelines last night deep down the field. He made some great grabs, though, on had to have it downs on some slants and everything else. It just takes a lot of pressure off of him being Buffalo's first selection in the 2024 draft, obviously first pick of the second round. But you don't have to worry about, the pressure that comes with that necessarily, because when Khalil Shakir was out, he kind of was more featured as one of the guys that needed to step up. Now you have Amari Cooper to help you out. And as I already mentioned, this opens up so much for Kincaid, and the way the backs are running the ball, you still want to be able to lean on the ground game. So to go back to that original question, I don't think it changes this offense. Josh Allen's not going to come out and start slinging the ball 40 to 50 times per game. They're still going to lean on this run game where what you have in James Cook. You saw what Ray Davis can do when he is given a decent role or sample size in a game. Ty Johnson's a factor there. This offensive line blocks extremely well in terms of run blocking. So you don't go away from that, but it opens up the play action. It opens up some opportunities for Cooper to maybe get some easy grabs when teams are expecting them to run. It's helps out significantly. And like I said, big picture wise, Matt, you look at this AFC conference, the Ravens are a very good team. They match up well with the Bills, but we'll wait and see what they look like through the course of this season, come playoff time, where they usually sputter out. Kansas City, despite having a perfect record, has lost Isaiah Pacheco this year, Hollywood Brown before the season started. They're without Rashee Rice. If there was a year where they were vulnerable, this is it. And to get Cooper not only gives them another weapon that they can go up against the Chiefs one-on-one, it keeps him off of Kansas City. Kansas City had to be right in the mix in terms of trying to acquire a guy like Amari Cooper. Maybe they come back and counter with a DeAndre Hopkins or something like that, but you're also taking a potential weapon away from the competition there. So this conference is still wide open. I think that this is a move that keeps the Bills in that upper echelon in the conference. And, you see where the chips fall come playoff time with this roster that Brandon Beane has assembled.
So a couple things here. First and foremost, let's update the compensation here. I think we mentioned it earlier in the show, but if not, I can't remember. A lot of moving parts right now. Number one, the Bills send a 2025 third round pick and a 2026 seventh round pick to the Cleveland Browns for Cooper and a 2025 sixth round pick. So they're adding another pick in 2025 to the arsenal. So they lose one, they gain one a couple rounds later. We talked about the expectation that they're going to get a comp pick. I know you can't bank on those. We all thought the Tremaine Edmonds contract was going to yield at least a third rounder, but the Bills are going to have options. They're going to have players. They have 2 seconds. They can get aggressive with kind of getting up, maybe potentially. To me, this is how I view the plan, just if I was guessing for how Brandon Beane is setting this up. You bring in Amari Cooper, you see how it goes, right? You see what adding a true separator means to your offense. And then you prioritize that position by getting younger in the draft next year. I'm not thinking, I think it was Andrew Brandt, who does a great job on his business podcast, former executive with the Green Bay Packers. He tweeted, is this the Bills trading for him and about to agree to an extension with him? Or is this just a third round pick for a rental? I'm okay with a third round pick for a rental if it really puts you in the best situation in 2024 to not waste this year with Josh Allen in his prime. And you can make adjustments to it in the offseason and go out and get a player that you're going to add to the mix that potentially is that bona fide number one of the future. I think that's what we've learned through 6 games, Ryan. And I don't know if Brandon Beane will corroborate this when we talk to him, whether it be today or tomorrow, if we get a chance to talk to him this week. But I think that the Bills need to have some type of playmaking wide receiver that can get separation. The model of player that they prioritized in 2019 and 2020 to continue to add those kinds of guys to the offense. And maybe it was a little bit of a miss on Curtis Samuel in terms of what he can mean in maybe that elevated wide receiver 2-ish role. Now you bump him down to wide receiver 3, which allows him to be a little bit more comfortable where he's been in Washington, in Carolina before that. Shakir is your bona fide number 2, your high-end number 2. And then you got Amari Cooper as that number 1, and the other guys can kind of fit in around that, and it takes a lot of pressure, like we talked about off Coleman.
Yeah, I look at this as a 1-year rental right now, and the Bills can always reevaluate that at the end of the season where they're going to have more cap space, obviously, in 2025, so they could re-sign him. But there's no point in them going out right now, in my opinion at least, and extending him right here, right now. I get that you gave up a third-round pick. You don't just want to lose him after one season, but let things play out. The Bills are also in really good shape draft capital-wise with their first 2 second-round picks. They could go after one of the top receivers in the draft class with that ammo as well. But if they like Cooper and they feel like Cooper still has a lot in the tank, you re-sign him in the offseason, and then those picks can go toward best possible player, whether it's trading up for an edge rusher, a difference-making edge rusher, whether it's going out and I don't think they need any help on the offensive line, but offensive linemen sometimes are like those premium picks in the first round. The Bills could still package those picks and move up for an instant difference maker if they wanted to. But now it's not necessarily having to be at receiver. But let things play out first with Cooper before you extend him too far. See how he fits in this offense. I think it's going to be a very good fit based on his skill set, based on how he's going to look alongside Khalil Shakir, have a young guy like Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel under contract for the next few years as well. And then obviously Kincaid, Knox, Cook, and company. So a lot of weapons there now. And this gives you at least a good chunk of the season to see how it all looks before you make a potential move on bringing him back for future seasons.
The other thing too, and I want to get to the super chat in a minute here, but it was funny how it played out as the Davante Adams news was kind of percolating. I saw some really dejected Bills fans about the Bills not able maybe to take a run at him And as soon as the report came out that the Jets were picking up the tab on his contract in 2024. I mean, that was a non-starter for the Bills. That's $11+ million this season as compared to the Cooper deal, which you're getting for less than $1 million in 2024 cap constraint. So I think that was the big piece for me from the jump. And I also said, I had an exchange with one fan where it was like, the Bills have waited pretty much to the deadline most years. Now, I think that the wide receiver market was moving once the Adams deal happened. And so that, Brandon Beane didn't waste any time. We'll find out if maybe they were, or maybe we won't ever find out how much involved they were on the Adams front, but it didn't seem like the Raiders were going to budge too much on the money part of it. We know that Davis has some tight pockets out there with some of the constraints that they've had over the last couple of years. So I think all parties are appeased. I think Aaron Rodgers gets to Pinocchio that entire operation once again, and he goes out and gets a guy. And again, I just think that in sports, you're a big anti-LeBron James guy, and it's one of the biggest issues.
He's not the GOAT. That's where I'm not.
It's one of the biggest sticking points into our bromance, into our great friendship, is your just absolute crap take on LeBron James. But besides that, my biggest negative assessment of LeBron James is that he thought at some point in his career, because it was going so hard in terms of front office not being able to surround him with talent, that he then too should become like this de facto GM. But that's not what you should try to do if you're not good at it. And there's some early returns where he really wasn't very good at it. Different moves that they made over the years, and he won a couple titles. But I think Aaron Rodgers has been his own biggest problem. He wanted a wide receiver year after year after year. Meanwhile, in Green Bay, he had one of the best pass protecting offensive lines in the league. And now you're in New York. What do you think would make more sense with that collection of talent for Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah,
going out and getting a 32-year-old wide receiver, or like a real legit offensive lineman that could help them?
Clearly, it's the offensive lineman, because let's just say the Jets go on a run and claim a wild card spot. I saw someone in here predicting Chiefs versus Jets in the AFC Championship, which is a wild prediction. Even if they can sneak in as a wild card team, you're going to go against some aggressive defenses that are going to blitz and send pressure. And we've seen how Aaron Rodgers has looked against pressure this year when they've gone against the Denver Broncos and when they've gone against some of these better defensive units in the last few weeks. He's taken some hits. The Minnesota Vikings hit him over and over and over again. The Bills even got a few good pops in on him despite not blitzing. So, Davante Adams is going to make some great plays for the Jets. Garrett Wilson's going to make some great plays. They have a really good running back room as well. But like you said, it doesn't make sense in this I shouldn't even say open window, this window that is closing very quickly, for them to go out and add a wide receiver that they're going to shell out a ton of money to before going out and trying to get some improvements on their offensive line.
Let's get to a couple of super chats here before we continue. And let's also pay the bills, because right now over on, we should do like a little pay the bills, like, I don't know, like a little pay the bills segment on the show where we, I don't know, I'm going to put my head around that. There's a little idea. Anytime you could kind of like name a segment. I like that kind of deal. Although I think that there is a pay the bills podcast. So maybe that would be a copyright infringement. What do you think?
I still like the idea nonetheless, Matt.
Thanks, dude. Become a Shout Buffalo Bills insider. Text 716-528-6727. You text that number, you get the details back with how to sign up, or go to joinsubtext.com/shoutbuffalobills. It is $3.99 a month, and then it is a 2-week free trial, $3.99 a month after that. The Shout text line is brought to you, as always, by Carrie C. Beyer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro, located at 237 Main Street in Buffalo, New York. If you or someone you know is seriously injured, give Carrie a call, 716-852-1234, or check out litrolaw.com. Okay, from Hobo on YouTube. So we pick up Cooper. Can we find out this week how the big dogs feel about Bass? I'm guessing that this means moving on from Tyler Bass. I don't know, Ryan. I still don't see what this ends up looking like. Do the Bills cut bait and just completely move on with Tyler Bass if they find somebody that they like? I'm just hesitant to believe that somebody you're going to bring in off the street is going to be somebody that you believe in so much that you're not only like going to bring him in and cut Bass and take that, cap hit, whatever that ends up being, which is kind of like it's not a huge deal. It's not a huge number. It's something that they could probably figure out. It's just like how much my sticking point is how much better is he going to be than Bass? But maybe it is the confidence is just so shaking at this point. You need to remove him from the situation, bring somebody else in. Do you think the Bills are there yet? Does it feel like they're there yet?
I feel like they're at the point where they need to seriously add a kicker to their practice squad. Not necessarily, sign someone off the street and get rid of Bass because of the contract. We did see last night, not making excuses for the guy, how bad the wind was. Greg Zuerlein missed a few key kicks, doinking them off the crossbars. Bass's 47-yarder got away at the very end. The extra point was just another kick that was too low. He has had an issue with that. But I'm also, as someone that watches a ton of football, it feels like every week I'm watching a game where a team, brings out their kicker and he just connects on a 59-yarder like it's nothing, a 55-yarder, a 56-yarder. And it's like there's no nerves from that fan base about the kicker missing a kick like that. Whereas I think Bills fans are at that point now where every time Tyler Bass steps on the field, they're nervous about the outcome, probably including that 22-yarder last night, Matt, that gave the Bills the lead late in the game. That should have just been considered a chip shot, and it was. But I'm sure there were still some nerves among Bills fans about, is this guy going to be able to make this kick?
All right, enough Bass talk on this breaking news edition of Shout. Couple other things that I want to get to. The problem for me too, going off of what we were talking about with Aaron Rodgers with that move, because like if you're assessing things in the AFC East right now, right? Like Tua's going to come back. You think probably in the next couple of weeks. We'll see how far the Dolphins fall down. They're sitting there at 2-3. They get the bye at a beneficial time. I'm not writing them off to like get back into things. Like if Tua gets back and he's able to play some consistent football for a few weeks, I mean, they could string together 4, 5, 6 wins. They did it last year. They're a team that's capable of doing that. The more I look at the Jets schedule, the more I'm like, okay, I'm also not writing them off. I mean, they're adding Adams. I think that there's going to be a level of familiarity with them. But here's the piece of all of this from a Jets perspective that just leaves me feeling so gross about Aaron Rodgers. You have a game last night where you throw the game-losing interception. You are the $50+ million quarterback, one of the greatest of all time. And what do you do in the post-game press conference when you're asked about the play? You throw your wide receiver under the bus. Not only do you throw him under the bus, you come back out a day later on Pat McAfee. You double down on it, saying that he was in the wrong spot, and he was just stating that. And now reports are coming out after the Jets trade for Davante Adams that they're now going to be shopping Mike Williams. Can you imagine being in that locker room with Aaron Rodgers and looking at that guy, knowing the kind of teammate that he just was to Mike Williams? And like, we don't know the dynamic inside the building. We don't know how Mike Williams is practicing, his work habits, all that kind of stuff. But from a leadership perspective, we always talk about like being a leader, being a captain, being the guy that, other guys around you believe in. I just can't think of a crappier way to treat a teammate.
Right. And this was supposed to be a big acquisition for the Jets, adding Mike Williams on a 1-year, $10 million contract. Throw him under the bus, do it twice. Then you hear that he's on the trade block. They're going to try to move on from him. It's, there's a reason why Aaron Rodgers is who he is. It's why he doesn't have any kind of relationship with his family. It seems like he has very few friends, close friends out there. I think that he is someone that maybe can be a little bit too blunt at times. I know he is good friends with Josh Allen. He has some other friends in this league. I'm not saying that this guy's a loner and on his own, but the way that he comes across though in that scenario is comes off poorly. It just comes off poorly. Like you said, this is the guy that was not able to beat a Bo Nix led Broncos team when you're making all that money, and Nix throws for 60 yards in the win. And obviously the Broncos defense played a huge role in that. He's the reason why they failed to come back last week against the Vikings in London. He threw a bad interception to Stephon Gilmore. He's got to look in the mirror and take the responsibility of his part in this 2-4 start for the Jets as well. And if Adams comes in and they start winning, I'm sure we'll start hearing the national media singing his praises all over again. But this has been a bad investment for the Jets through one full season, obviously because of the injury, and then what we've seen from him so far.
Over 3,000 people watching in the middle of the afternoon on a Tuesday in October, Ryan Talbot. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're one of the 700 watching on YouTube right now. We really appreciate you all for joining us today. This is a huge kind of deal. And the one other piece that I wanted to talk about today, and we'll probably flesh this out a little bit more tomorrow on the Staples show, once we get a chance to talk to Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott and probably Amari Cooper. How much do you feel like the Bills should check this off their list and be settled going into the stretch run now that they've added a wide receiver? Because, I put out during the game yesterday, like that it was a non-existent pass rush that I think led to the success that the Jets offense had in the first half. This is a Jets offense that has just been absolutely ineffective for weeks, but they were able to move the ball. They scored some points. Obviously the Hail Mary had something to do with the 17 number at the end of the half, but all the same, I think I just completely lost my train of thought because I just saw this comment in here from Dylan where he said, Matt and Ryan, how we doing today, guys? And I just thought, how cheerful. How are you doing, Dylan? Welcome into the party, my friend.
Doing well.
Really, really, really good stuff. What was I saying there, Ryan?
You're talking about the lack of the... I don't know. My wife's out here now. She's playing ads on her stinking phone. Everyone's throwing us off the rails here, Parrino.
Oh, boy.
You were talking about the lack of the edge rush,
yes.
Pass rush for the Bills.
So now, do the Bills now in the next couple of weeks turn their attention to maybe adding a difference-making pass rusher? Now, the pushback that I got for the Jets game in suggesting they might think about it is Ed Oliver's out, Von Miller's suspended, and those you add those two guys back into the mix, you're golden, right? Are you 100% golden going down the stretch? Or do you want to try to figure out a way? Now, this is where it gets really tricky because, of course, I think the first name that you naturally go to is Max Crosby, right? Like he's been kind of thrown out into a bunch of, but the financials around that almost make it a non-starter. I'm sure that some magician type work could be done, but where are you at with this defensive line? Do they have enough? Because right now I'm hesitant to say that they do.
Yeah, I don't think they have enough, but I don't know if the Bills have the maneuverability to necessarily add a difference maker at this point in time with the cap space available to them. It would have to be something where the other team maybe eats part of the salary. I just don't know how realistic it is, but in an ideal world, yeah, the Bills would still be, looking on the market to try to get better in that area because, yeah, you're right. Ed Oliver comes back here soon. You get Von Miller after the 4-game suspension. I don't feel like that's enough of a pass rush, especially off the edge with Von Miller, AJ Epinesa, who did show up last night with 2 sacks, Greg Rousseau, and Dwayne Smoot is your top 4. It's just not enough there to be difference makers. The problem is difference makers usually cost a ton of money if you're acquiring them via trade. They're not usually to be had for pennies on the dollar.
The thing too is like some people suggested safety in the first half, and I felt like the safety suggestion wasn't as intense after the game, after Taylor Rapp had what I would probably consider one of the best safety halves of football for the Buffalo Bills in a while. Like maybe going back to, 2022, maybe even 2021. I don't know. Like Jordan Poyer's all-pro year, Micah Hyde's all-pro year. I mean, that was some really good safety. I mean, across the difference-making plays over and over again. So I don't know, Ryan. I don't know where I fall on what to do here. I definitely don't think they add a safety, only from the perspective of you have Micah Hyde still lingering out there as an option down the
Just gonna
stretch.
say that.
You still haven't, broken glass in case of emergency with Mike Edwards. And I know a lot of Bills fans are super perplexed with the fact that Edwards continues to be a DNP. But I also wouldn't rush him back. I mean, if he had a hamstring injury, if he had multiple injuries over the course of the offseason, he's a guy that I think you want to kind of stash, and you have the opportunity to get Cole Bishop some snaps here when needed over the next couple of weeks. And I know people are really down on DeMar Hamlin, and we got Gregory Schillinger, one of our regulars in the YouTube Insider chat, talking about him being a great story, but that he's played poorly. I agree. Like, I don't think Hamlin has given you super above average play at the position. I think it's been solid. I think that it's matchup specific. You play hard-nosed run teams, he's going to struggle in that spot. He's taken some bad angles. He's had some missed tackles. He's had some missed assignments, but they needed him to make a big play in a big moment last night, and he made it. And I think you should, give him a little bit of credit for that, the way that he played too. It was Rapp who knocked the ball out, but who knows if Hamlin doesn't wrap up the way that he did and set that play up, maybe that never happens. And I know a lot of people are also asking about who's going to get cut for Cooper. We could probably finish with that, Ryan, but your thoughts on Hamlin and the safety position.
So you already mentioned they have that coupon, the Micah Hyde coupon, I call it, because Hyde has already said it's either the
You're
Bills
a big
or
coupon
nowhere.
guy. I could see that.
Oh, absolutely, I am. I love a good deal. And if you can bring Micah Hyde back, if that's the emergency right there. If you need him, you have him. You don't have to go out and acquire someone. And I've seen some comments in here about Hyde, was washed last year. He wasn't in his prime. He didn't play like he did those first few years in Buffalo. There's no denying that. But they have that option if they so choose. I wouldn't mind seeing Cole Bishop get more run. I thought he did get much better as that Texans game went on. And you have to live with the growing pains of letting up a big play like he did down the field because he is a rookie. Things like that do happen. But they have a very talented player in Cole Bishop that they invested a second-round pick in for a reason. I think Hamlin is that guy that is not going to make the mistake of being out of place. He doesn't have the overwhelming athleticism. He does let up some plays in front of him. That's to be expected, but he's always where he needs to be, and I'm sure that's something that Sean McDermott covets on this team. But overall, no, you don't go out and make a move for a safety. And just a few comments here, Matt, some super chats. But first, congrats on 12K. It seems like we went over the 12K hump in terms of subscriptions. Big time thank you to Lin Lan for the super sticker. Man of War gets it completely with his super chat. MJ is greater than LeBron.
There's a reason I didn't put that on the screen.
Percent correct.
There's a reason. But go ahead. We appreciate
I had to put it up there, so had to give some love out here. But as we're starting to wrap up this show,
yeah, you would, Talbot. Very nice. So some moves that the Bills could potentially make. You kind of mentioned a couple of them off the top. I don't necessarily think that they cut MVS. I know that some people want to go there immediately. I think that they have the potential to go to 6 wide receivers and kind of shift Mac Hollins into a much more like special teams specific role. He's had a nice few moments with the Bills. I mean, the touchdown last night, he had the touchdown a couple weeks ago. He's been fine, but he is what he is. He's a wide receiver 5 in this league. It's been that way for years. And he had a chance with the Eagles, won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. He was there in Atlanta and he basically got benched in Atlanta last year. I think MVS is kind of like that playoff insurance, a guy that makes big plays in big games over the course of his career. And you hope to tap into that at some point. But right now, I think they go with 6 wide receivers. There's a couple of different options that they can go with to kind of move some pieces around. They love them some Casey Toohill. I don't know how he's valuable on special teams, and I get that piece of it. They're not going to move anything at running back. I mean, Will Clapp is a guy they could probably throw back on their practice squad. I think you mentioned him. Yeah,
I mentioned Will Clapp as a possibility, someone that they got on the practice squad once. I think they could do it once again. The linebacker numbers probably keep everyone on this roster, but we've seen them having one or two linebackers on that inactive list week in and week out. They're not going to move on from Ulofoshio as a draft pick, but you could definitely get Andreessen on your practice squad, one would think, if they wanted to go that route. But once Von Miller comes back, or once he's nearing that return, you look at the snap counts, and maybe it is a Casey Toohill that's the odd man out, as you mentioned there, because you only have so many reps to go around. I know they liked him, but there's options. I don't think MVS is a guarantee either because of the money on the deal, because of the fact that you don't know what injuries could occur in season. You always want to have someone that could be waiting in the wings. And I know he's been a non-factor for Buffalo, but he has stepped up in the postseason in his career multiple times. So it wouldn't hurt to have a guy like that on your inactive list in again, a break glass in case of emergency due to injuries.
Do you want to win a trip to see the Bills play the Rams in Los Angeles? Well, right now.
Do I ever?
Oh, baby. You could be a winner. You take 3 guests to Los Angeles with round trip flights from Buffalo to LA. Buffalo at LA game tickets, 4-night hotel stay in Santa Monica, Talbot, party pack, VIP pregame, and more. See the Labatt display in store to enter and learn more. All you got to do, Ryan, is grab your Topps coupon book, cut a couple out, head over to Topps, get a couple of deals, check out the in-store display to get all the details. Boom. I can see you being a big winner, Talbot.
I can feel it. I'm already a big winner, though, Matt Parrino. You know why? I have 80 cents off per gallon at Topps right now in gas points. Get your deals at Topps.
The look
Save
you
at the
just
pumps
made,
as well. There's a new read.
Was amazing. Over 3,300 people watching live right now. Thank you so much. We got to run. Hit that like button. This Saturday, 1402 Millersport Highway. We're going to be at Wingnuts, Bills versus Titans preview show. We'll be talking a lot about Amari Cooper, the new addition to this Bills offense. So much to get to this week. We can't wait. We'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.